You are listening to the TKM Co-Host Studio podcast. And for this episode, we have rearranged our room a little bit in here to abide by our latest social distanced, I guess, format here. And today we're sitting down with Monica Hayes to get some updates on the realty world and just a little bit of what's been going on. So I want to welcome you back, Monica. Thank you so much for being here, of course.
Thank you for the invite. It's great to be back and think about the last time I was here and how much the world has changed, even though it wasn't really that long ago. So
absolutely. You know, a wrench, I guess, was kind of figuratively thrown into just about everybody's area of expertise and business and family life and everything. But we thought it would just be a great time to sit down and, again, go over those updates of, what you are involved in, realty world, just to get specifics, I guess, on maybe opportunities out there, things that have changed and might stay changed moving forward. Either way, it's felt like quite a while since we've last had you here. So we appreciate you again sitting down with us here.
Great.
Yeah. So for anyone in our audience who might have heard or might have missed our very first episode of our podcast, a few months back, we sat down with Monica and we were able to introduce you to her. And she was able to give us a little bit of insight and great information about opportunities as far as like the market goes with interest rates, and flipping homes, kind of what her style and her way of working with her team, how that goes. And that was much more, I guess, focused on the spring season. But here we are now. It's just, I believe, the 2nd of June here now, 1st of June. Yeah, so the summer is in full force. And much like other professions, it's been interesting to see, I guess, from an outsider's perspective, realty, like how it's come to implement new changes, I guess. So first question, if you don't mind me asking this, were there any sort of particular like first signs with what you were doing that kind of maybe pointed towards like a change was coming initially?
Yeah. So back early March or so, just the idea of offices starting to close and our brokerage closed really, I think the last day it was open, the actual building was March 20th. And so everybody has been working from home and, with an independent contractor situation where it's maybe just an individual agent running their business, that probably wasn't quite as big of a deal, but
sure,
having the team and everybody being separated, we definitely had to adjust with that and change how we were communicating and how we were doing business. So those were like the first signs, I guess, that we were in for some definitely big changes. And then that led to lack of having open houses. It was shortly after that the brokerage made the decision to not host any in-person open houses at all. So very quickly, I learned several different techniques to be communicating with people virtually. Within our office, we started using Zoom a lot. I mean, I had used it before a little bit, but daily, Jane and I have Zoom meetings just to kind of touch base for the day. This is a plan. This is where we're going. And actually, with it being scheduled, we're probably communicating even better than we were before. So positive.
It's not to interrupt you here quick, but with the Zoom calls, I feel like completely relate to the connection sort of aspect you're pointing at because, it's much more, I guess we're able to be much more focused and honed in on like, hey, in your schedule 2 to 3, would that work to discuss this and that? I guess with my role here in this business with TKM, it's been interesting, super helpful, like you're saying, to be able to work from home if that works for you, of course. But to be able to, I guess, adapt to this new form of communication and just, I guess, take one step further into the digital world, I feel like it's a huge step for a lot of people to take.
Definitely. I feel like overall, we knew this was coming, and that's why we started working with TKM. Like the digital world was something on the horizon, and it was plop in our lap super quickly, and just adjust. And from the beginning, we have said, like, we're just evolving, and we're evolving probably quicker than we would have, but definitely for the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess if to talk percentages, maybe this might be interesting. Would you say, is there a particular percentage of the work that you were doing before that you are now doing strictly virtually? Like would there be a percentage, I guess, you could think of for that?
I would say probably at least 30%. I mean,
sure.
Throughout the whole process, real estate has been an essential industry. And so we still have been having face-to-face contact with people, in-person showings, if that was something that both the buyers and sellers were comfortable with. But just like the communication with our team, the other thing is doing virtual tours or virtual open houses. We have been using Zoom for that, for the virtual tours. And the positive side to that we hadn't done before, we were using oftentimes Facebook Live or, I guess, depending on what the other person had for options. But now with using Zoom, we have been able to record. And the benefit for that has been that then the buyer can go back through at their own pace, be reminded what they saw, be reminded about the things that might be of concern. And I think, too, just the importance of maybe understanding the buyer's agency for that and the difference between a video marketing virtual tour open house that on the listing side I might do, which of course is highlighting all of the positives of my listings, and then taking it a different turn for my buyers and really being their eyes and ears and nose for things that are out there that they can't see when they're not there, and working for them as the buyer's agent. And what a difference that is in the way you're videoing and what you're really focusing on.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that, and just alone thinking about, like you're saying, the ability to play back these videos, right? It's not just a tour that you have to give once and then over again later. It's something that newcomers can probably view as well, I would imagine. And, just thinking about real estate in general, in, I guess, the old way, just before spring, if I could call it that, I do know that there was a little bit of business that would come in, generally from like different states and remote locations. They would kind of use Zoom or whatnot, different video, virtual formats to choose homes. I know. I guess that was a thing. Is that something you've kind of come across? Like, have you had more than just your typical locals, I guess? Have you noticed anything there?
I really would say we haven't seen an intrusion of some sort of disruptor from outside of the market coming in at this point. Although, Midwest, those trends tend to happen at the end of a process with that. But what we have seen is agents stepping it up to the next level. And where, before we, of course, have been doing professional pictures for a long time, but now we're doing maybe a 3D tour with every listing or some sort of video for every listing, and just making sure that people really are getting a feel for what that house is like before they step foot in it. One, just to try to eliminate unnecessary visits, I guess.
It's probably making the most of their time that way.
And the other thing that I think that has relayed, one, you need to make sure that your listing agent is really portraying the house to get the most people in there, because that could be make or break for you. And two, it's been interesting dealing with buyers where maybe they would have spent more time looking at more houses, or maybe not real serious about buying, that during this time we've had really only serious buyers buying. And so it's been really beneficial for our time, I guess, as well, too.
Yeah. That is very interesting to hear, because to your point with the real estate area of expertise being essential, marked right off the bat that way. A point that was brought up to me pretty early on in the quarantine that definitely stuck with me was, I guess, a point towards why realty is definitely an essential business. It was the point of just taking note that regardless of what is going on out there, day to day, there are still people that either, whether it's their choice or not, sometimes they have to leave their place that they're at, or they have to, be looking for a new place to live. And I would imagine, especially during this time, that it was much more serious. What's the word I'm looking for? Like sincerity behind why we are choosing this now. You know what I mean? Versus just browsing. I guess, have you experienced much of like a change in like empathy or emotional strength, I guess, that you've felt like you've had to implement, to like still be as warm with new clients, like when it's virtual?
Yeah. And that gets to be a little bit more difficult, although I would say maybe before, when I would do an introductory phone call with somebody who was out of town and not able to meet in person, now we're doing Zoom. And so then that makes it a little bit more emotional and able to communicate better. I think you approached upon it just a little bit, but a lot of times people think about real estate as, oh, I'm going to buy the next bigger and better house, and it's all this happy time. And there is this whole side of real estate that really isn't that way. We've been dealing with that with our seniors for a long time. And I always say, like, my grief counseling background comes in so helpful with that, because it's a very different feeling than buying that first house or moving on to the next bigger and better house. But, with the changes in emotional states of people, the domestic violence that is going on with people at home, people losing their jobs, people still have to move. And maybe it's to get away from that abusive spouse, or maybe it's because they're suddenly getting divorced, or they've lost a job and they need to buy less of a house or not have that payment. So that essential need is there. And people need to have a safe place. The other side of it is that people are spending all of this time at home, and suddenly maybe the walls feel smaller and closer. And this idea, especially with millennials, of maybe home didn't have as heavy of a weight on them as other generations, because they would rather be spending their money traveling and doing activities than spending their money on their homes. I think there's been some of a change with that, and just being unsure, like, are we going to be able to travel for a while? Maybe we need to make the best of this. I have a client now who had been in an apartment. She was home with her parents, and then to go back to the apartment, she's like, I can't do it. I got to find more space. I got to find something for myself. And so we're starting to see people maybe appreciate their home more. I know the remodelers have been crazy busy of people trying to make their house more comfortable for them.
I guess just to relate to that from a personal level, for the initial first few months of quarantine, me and my family definitely stayed boxed in indoors. We were lucky to be able to do that. And, to your point, it was absolutely the case of our space around us, whether it was furniture, things, the way that things are set up inside. I guess for lack of a better word, it kind of got old quick, and it was very helpful, at least mentally, and like for some clarity for us to be able to just keep things rearranged, and keep our space somewhat alive and changing, because you're right. The more time you spend inside, you're noticing those little details of your house, whether it's like a hole in your screen for your window or something, or paint that's chipping or whatnot. But it definitely has, I guess there's been a big wave of like self-reflection too that's kind of came in with all of this. And I think it's valuable, but if anything, hopefully it's helping people point towards the direction that they should have been or wanted to go in all along,
Yeah. And I think that time I've had a couple people who have said, we thought we were going to list. We weren't sure when we were going to get those projects done that some people need to do before they list, and cleaning out the closets and touching up paint.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, oh, we had that time to do it. We're ready to go. Let's roll now. And so it's working in all different ways, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Just out of curiosity, if I can take it back real quick to your expertise with working with seniors and everything in real estate. Just out of curiosity, with the seniors definitely being a focus point for, I guess, just we need to keep them safe. We need to do all that we can, right, to abide by the social distance and everything, just for the health and well-being of everybody who's an elder to us too, right? I guess just out of curiosity, do you feel like, or have you seen any changes in like locational movement with like seniors? I guess, like, have seniors been like leaving homes, going elsewhere, kind of changing things up on their front?
Yeah.
What's that been like?
So I would say, actually, I feel like it's worked both ways. There's some hesitancy to go into this atmosphere where you're around a big group of other seniors who are not cohabitating, but all within pretty close proximity. And so there's some people who feel like they need to try to avoid that for as long as possible. And
Sure.
And the different senior living facilities have been doing a good job protecting their people who are there. So it comes along with 14 days of isolation when you come in, so that in case you happen to be exposed, you're not spreading that to the other people there.
Yeah.
And then there's this idea of not being able to be maybe as self-sufficient, and the fear of going out or having, people come into your home to provide that care, and the risk of them maybe exposing you in some way. And so then there's people that feel safer in that sort of situation where everything is contained and everything that is right there where you need it. So
yeah,
it's really individualized, and people kind of have both ways of thinking about it.
Yeah. It's, I guess, maybe for lack of a better word, there's a lot of opportunity for just choice out there. I've noticed, whether it's like groceries, like how you might want to approach that with things being kind of open back up here in this state we're in. There's the opportunity, if you want to go into some grocery stores, you can go and pick things out just how you always used to. Or again, there's like this new option if you want to order online and just have them put into your vehicle, like a sort of pickup, no contact sort of thing. I've noticed a lot of peers in my life that have been taking pictures, just socializing and whatnot with the seniors in their lives, like through the window of a lot of these facilities. That's always like heartwarming to see, at least that they're still able to be social in some way.
Yeah, it is. It hurts my heart a little bit to think about it. Like, one of the things that I truly enjoyed when I would be spending a lot of time in those nursing homes back prior to real estate was just being able to touch people and how much that meant to them.
Yeah.
And knowing that they're not getting that now is hard.
Right. But I guess given everything, just taking it back to the business level, would you say now is a good time to be buying a house? I guess, like, there are a lot of factors out there. Could you kind of delve into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think last time I talked, as we were going into the spring market, it was like interest rates are at all-time lows. It's the perfect time to buy. And never did I think that they would even be lower now.
Right.
So I've had people locking into a 30-year fixed rate loan at 2.8% interest.
My goodness.
It's just crazy. And it just provides you so much buying power and lowers your payments. So people are being able to get more, rather than renting, they can get a nice house for the same amount of money. And so as a buyer, really, there is no better time than right now to be buying.
That's awesome.
and because of the amount of buyers out there buying, it's still continuing to be a very strong competitive market for the buyers. And so that makes it a great time to sell. So
right.
To maybe, make that step up to the next house then, because you can afford a little bit more with the interest rates and knowing that there's a strong demand. Maybe you want a little more space. Maybe you want some of those amenities. So it's a great time. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
Sure.
So
I imagine
the market is really strong.
Yeah, that's I think important to hear for any of our listeners because not everybody's got two eyes, ears, and a nose in the world itself, and kind of like we were chatting a little bit before the podcast started. There's a little bit of angst, I would say, still in general of at least wondering, is now an okay time? It would now be a smart time. Would now be a great opportunity, sort of thing. And there are a lot of young families out there. There are a lot of people still out there, and so to hear that business is still thriving, I think that's really important. 100%.
I would say, the first weeks that we got into this, and as people were a little uncertain about their jobs, or maybe they were getting laid off, or we didn't know if factories are going to be open or not, at that point, there was some cause for concern, or, in the last minute loans that weren't going through.
Sure.
I think that stuff is still happening, but we're all questioning, asking a lot of questions up front, making sure that maybe instead of both spouses being qualified, we get a pre-approval with just one spouse, so that if there is that lack of income there, that people are still comfortable. So it's just changing the way that we're asking questions and really being prepared so that still those people that are pre-approved still have a good, strong pre-approval. Our lenders in the area have been amazing. There's been times where maybe suddenly somebody doesn't qualify for a 30-year fixed rate loan, but the local lenders will do an in-house loan to get us through, and then they'll be able to refinance down the road. So we're so fortunate to have good lenders in the area.
That's good to hear, and I guess if I can double down on that point you're making there, with just changes that have come to be, do you feel that there are much for changes that will probably remain? I guess new changes that we might have come across. This is a kind of wide question, but I guess changes that might be good to keep in mind that they'll be around, whether it's for the safety and well-being of everybody, or just this thing happened and we've adapted, and this is kind of a better way to do things now.
Yeah. I think we're all adjusting to what the new normal is. We opened up open houses for in-person visits 2 weekends ago now, but they're in person with rules. And now we are only allowing one group in at a time. Everybody has to have a mask, sanitize on the way in and out, and signing disclosures and that sort of thing. And I think that will be around for quite a while. And then people who aren't comfortable with that, we still need to be providing for them the virtual opportunities. And so I don't think that's going to change. So I think we've just added on to the way that we do things in time, the masks and the gloves. And, if we have a vaccine and things, everybody feels really clear and good about things, I think those will go away. But I don't think any of the virtual stuff is going away.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Just of course, we're a little bit biased on this end working with media, but just I guess this was a very unique situation that affected everybody and kind of came out of nowhere. But to know that there are things that are still forward progressing and moving and adapting to all of the change, it's kind of inspiring. It's neat to know that technology is going to continue to have our back, and that we can continue to be creative, showing things and stuff too. If I could ask you a question, this summer maybe versus last summer, if you can remember that far back here, the years felt so long. What would you say if you can come up with something here? Feels like most similar, I guess, to last summer. Is there anything you can think of there?
Well, I don't know about similar. I would say that we weren't really sure what to expect. You know, I was here last time talking about, hey, we're ramping up for spring market. And then although we have stayed pretty busy throughout it, the real estate market in general definitely has been down, mostly because the number of listings have been down because people aren't really sure about people coming into their house.
Sure.
But now I feel as people are dealing with this new normal and we're taking precautions and making sure that people are staying safe, those sellers are starting to feel more comfortable with listing their houses. And so what we would have been experiencing in March and April, as far as the number of listings and busyness, didn't just disappear. I think there's all this pent up demand. And so while our typical Johnson County market, June, July is mostly just closings and people getting settled for the summer before school starts, has just been delayed. And so now this year, our June and July is going to look at like a lot of showings, a lot of offers, and then closings coming August, September. So things are just being delayed.
Yeah, just kind of pushed back a little bit, not disappearing though.
Right.
Yeah. That's been very similar as far as like just hearsay I've heard with like private event space and whatnot too. You know, a lot of people who are throwing weddings and things like that out there, celebrations. These are not things that need to disappear, and you don't have to be worried that they will. And I agree that, you know, at least it feels kind of like in the air, maybe we have a big wave of just excitement and you know, positivity outlook wise going forward, because we do have a vaccine that is going to come eventually in the future. And you just focusing, I guess, on what's going to change versus what we can do to be most adaptable now. I think it's important to reflect on, you know. If I could dive into this next question here with you, what would you say keeps you motivated or has kept you motivated the most during this time? Like since our last meet and greet.
So the same thing as before, really, just helping people, like their need for homes and their needs to get settled and to have a trusted person helping them through that hasn't changed any. We actually brought on a new agent to our team during this time. Yeah. And so it's been great to be able to spend the time we need to get him trained, and Brooke's up and doing great. So even just that motivation to give me a little bit more of a life as well. So yeah, I think it's just to continue to help people.
Absolutely. Would you say, since bringing Brooks on, is there like any new or exciting projects you're working on the coming months ahead? Like,
yeah. So really, it's just being able to continue to give our clients the best experience possible and making sure that it's seamless from one person of our team working with them and to the next, and that our communication stays good. So, we've had our ways of doing things, but bringing one more person in just changes that a little bit. And so just making sure that we have those systems really well down and in place, and it's just working like a well-oiled engine.
Yeah, that's a great thing to hear, you know. And I guess for those buyers out there that we know are there and maybe being delayed a little bit, I guess if you had to offer just one piece of advice looking forward, maybe it might motivate them, excite them about the season that is thriving right now, or so we hear. And I guess, is there anything that comes to mind there? Like, what would you tell a young couple if you had to convince them, I guess?
I guess that if anybody wants to focus on quality of life and building wealth, really, real estate is a place to start with that, because you make it your own, you enjoy where you are and what you're doing. And the building wealth just comes naturally with home ownership. You have, instead of paying rent to somebody, you're paying down your mortgage, and then we live in a great place where real estate tends to appreciate. And so you're building natural wealth that way. And while you may not get into your final best house, right from the start, you build wealth and you work your way to the next house. And it's just a way to be able to have an overall really good quality of life.
Yeah. And setting those goals, I'm sure everybody has some idea in the back of their mind of at least where they would want to be, 5-10 years down the road, or where they might not want to be too. Sometimes that's an interesting way to go about deciding. So I guess like our last meeting, I would love to give just any sort of, I would love to give our viewers and our listeners the best chance to hook up, connect with you, get to know you. I guess, do you have a preferred way for clients to get in touch with you, or a preferred social media that would be a great one to follow and connect if they're not already?
Well, I would say the one-stop shop to get all of our information would either be our Facebook page or our website, which is just themonicahaysteam.com. It's easy to get connected everywhere, get all of our team's information from there. I think the great thing about our Facebook and Instagram, though, is you get a little bit of our personalities, too, and be able to see.
I can attest to that.
What we have going on. So, we try to make it somewhat entertaining and not just house after house. So you can pick up tips there. We'll help you with whatever, but always can reach out just by phone. We'll respond however you reach out. We text, we call, we email.
Yeah. This is 2020.
That's right.
We're up to date here.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear. Well, Monica, I want to thank you so much again for sitting down with us and just giving us an update on everything that's going on out there in the real estate world. And, I think I speak for everyone in hoping the coming months and the future ahead, the season ahead, are going to be much more full of this positive change. Hopefully it's like a broken bone where, we're going to come back twice as strong this time around. So I hope you have a great start to your week, and looking forward to hearing more from you moving forward here. Definitely feel free to stop back in to give us updates on anything. We'd be blessed to have you.
I really appreciate the opportunity. It's great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.